Boy, when you think about what can cause conflict in multicultural teams, you can come up with hundreds of reasons. First and foremost is the reality of sin. Just part of who we are. We carry that with us. All of us have wounds, all of us have history, all of us have realities that have formed who we are, and we bring them into every team relationship. So it doesn't have to be a multicultural team for friction to arise, any team. Especially, I found among missionaries, because the missionaries are all committed to a goal, and we tend to be passionate people. And sometimes somebody does something that kind of diverts me or gets in the way of the goal I want to reach, and it becomes a point of tension or a point of frustration. That's not sin. That's just the reality that I want to move towards a common goal and cause, and I find that one of my teammates doesn't quite hold it in the same way that I do. Now, that's not just true of multicultural teams. That's true of any team. The biggest challenge in multicultural teams is when culture begins to rear its head. And so the Brazilian on the team is perennially 10 to 15 minutes late. The Swiss is always right on time. A class once, I asked a Kenyan student, if I invited you to dinner at 6 o'clock and you wanted to show me you were friends, it wasn't just business, what time would you show up? And he said, I'd show up a little bit late. And I said, how late is a little bit late? He said, maybe an hour late. And you think somebody coming an hour late to a team meeting, that's going to grate on nerves. In a Kenyan society, again, I lived there for about 8 years. If you meet somebody for the first time in the day, it doesn't matter if you were with them all day yesterday, you shake their hand. But you don't just shake one person's hand, you shake everybody's hand. If the American comes in and thinks to shake a hand, he or she might not realize that everybody needs a greeting, or else you're implicitly communicating that there's something wrong in a relationship somewhere. So we all make cultural faux pas on a regular basis, and those begin to add up. Again, initially you might think, oh, that's okay, that's not that big of a problem. But when you see it's not going to change, then you want to do something to change to change it. And stories are told, for example, of diplomats. The Italians have a very close definition of right spacing for personal relationships. It's so close that Americans feel they're being intimate. So the American backs up and the Italian says he's being distant and cold, and he moves forward, the American backs up. And they literally go through a dance that you can almost choreograph based on how much they want to interact with each other. And you see this in teams and people sitting around, eating habits, what types of food. Eating a new food in a new location is kind of fun until you get tired of it and you want something that reminds you of home. And so when I'm thinking what can cause friction and enable multicultural team to move out of the honeymoon phase, I can come up with 1,000 different reasons. If you want a technical word for some of what takes place, it's complementary schismogenesis. Now that's a really nice academic term. Complementary means you're behaving in opposite ways. Schism is a fight, and genesis is the beginning of a fight. So your behavior in opposite ways about what you should do, the Italian moving close, the American moving back, generates disagreements with each other over the course of time. The Italian walks away from the meeting saying that American was cold and distant. The American walks away from the meeting saying that Italian was really pushy. And the reality is neither of them were intending to communicate that to each other. They were both just trying to act normally, but acting normally within your own cultural constraints will generate situations that the team has to learn how to deal with. And it's hard enough when you're all from the same culture. But when you're from different cultures, these build up, and over the course of time, unless they're dealt with, they can blow up.